his shelter of his two lotus feet. So the recognition, the little light that needs to go on when you're facing extra hardship is Krishna wants to give more shelter of his two lotus feet. I'm lazy. And my spiritual trajectory has taken me only here, which is within my comfort zone. Now Krishna is giving me the opportunity to go beyond here. I don't know if I can do that. It's not within my capacity. That's the feeling. So that's because you're thinking of your capacity, not you plus Krishna. So you have to go the plus Krishna part. And be in the mood of service as his instrument. As I'm speaking, I'm thinking about my own current situation of extreme hardship. And that's what's going on. That's my understanding of what's going on. And without accepting that position of deepening my shelter taking in Krishna, it's awful. It certainly doesn't feel good. And it, probably would, if I was a woman, I'd cry like you're crying. As the emotional response. But then aside from the emotional response, there's the Krishna relationship part. And the resources that Krishna has given. And don't just see the hardship, see the opportunity. Somewhere in all of this is Krishna is reaching out to me to have deeper shelter in him and do what he wants. Even in the midst of the circumstance, because after some time the circumstance is going to be over, and when the circumstance is over, what's my relationship with Krishna like? Is it better than it was yesterday, tomorrow? And then there's today. That's what I want. That's what Krishna wants. I don't see the means, because in part I'm just relying on my own strength. It's an opportunity. It's fantastic. Not fun, but it's fantastic. And it's not always like that. Sometimes it's different, much easier. And we can still surrender when it's much easier. So if I were to write the script about my life, I would tell Krishna, make it easier, please. Not the hard ones, please. But we're not the script writer. And that's spiritual life. And it's within our tradition, and it's outside of tradition. It's Burijan Prabhu in one of his japa retreats was sharing something from another tradition. It's nice to hear because it's principle-based. So it's Saint Francis from the Christian tradition. And he had an assistant named Brother Leo. And Saint Francis was terribly ill for a long period of time, and Leo was taking care of him very faithfully and lovingly, and he couldn't stand to see him in such miserable condition, lying in bed in such pain. So he finally blurted it out, his feelings, saying, "You're so dear to the Lord, can you just pray to him to relieve you of this circumstance so that you don't have to be in such pain and misery, and at least we don't have to see you in that pain and misery." And St. Francis looked at him silent, a long time, and then said, "If I didn't know that you're speaking out of love and admiration, I would tell you, get away from me and I don't want to see you ever again." Our position is the position of the servant, and he's the master. He didn't, not exactly that language. And he knows what's best for us. So I should pray to him, whatever it is that you feel is best for me, please do that. And immediately got out of his illness bed and got on the floor and started praying aloud. Please do with me what you like, because you're the master and I'm the servant. Not those same, but similar. Now ours is a movement of awakening bhakti, which is, I want to serve Krishna. Don't put conditions on that. Because service becomes pure when the conditions get removed. And when the conditions are pinched, that's the hardship. There's other examples, but you get the idea. Something on the same point? Because there's another question if not. Same point? Same point as this one? Let me just read this one. Then you give him the microphone. I'll read this question. Okay, Krishna conscious philosophy presented by a pure soul is theoretically very pleasing and endearing to the heart. Kind of like, however, when we try to put those nice teachings into practice from the mixed position, fear is generated. And I feel like I'm unable to follow, and that makes me feel sad, unhappy. Saying yes to Krishna means saying yes to the instructions that come from Krishna. Is this a kind of aversion to Krishna as well? Well, of course it is. We're in a mixed condition. And it's not expected by Krishna, or those who are passing on Krishna's teachings, that there's the teachings, there's the performance. It can happen like that, but that's pretty rare. Generally, it's gradual, little by little, and little by little, and little by little. So is that a kind of aversion? Yeah, for sure. And then we have to cultivate the letting go of those other shelters and taking Krishna's shelter fully. That the medium is the instructions through descending mercy. More? You want to raise something further on this? Whose question was this one? Something more? It's good? Okay. Yes?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Saying yes to Krishna, does it include saying yes to circumstances?
I can't hear you. Hold that a little further away. A little further away. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Saying yes to Krishna, does it include saying yes to circumstances we face? When we are in neophyte stage.
When we are what?
In neophyte stage.
In a neophyte stage. There's difficult circumstances. It means saying yes to the circumstance.
Yes.
You understand the question? Yes? No? Yes? Yes. Okay. Okay. So, kind of. Meaning, let's take an extreme. Somebody comes through the door wielding a knife or a gun or some weapon and starts attacking. Are we supposed to say yes to the circumstance or no to the circumstance? Well, you say yes to the circumstance in the sense that Krishna has somehow sanctioned this. It doesn't mean that you just passively stand there and let the circumstance make a bloody mess all over the place. You take appropriate action according to circumstance. depending upon the circumstance. Now, okay, what's appropriate action? Well, it depends on the circumstance to say what appropriate action is. And it also depends on the time and the place. And depends upon your relationship with Krishna. But you say yes to the circumstance rather than just like something else that can be done. You can just deny the circumstance. Deny, not supposing somebody says something mean to you. You can just close your eyes and put your head in the sand and they didn't say it. That's, denying the circumstance. So, be clear what the circumstances are, recognizing Krishna has sanctioned, otherwise it wouldn't happen, and then, what's appropriate action, given the circumstance. And when the appropriate action is gauge it, what's appropriate, in part, large part, what will be pleasing to Krishna. You may not know the answer to that question, but you cultivate the question as a general response to circumstances of life, and you're more likely to get an answer than if you don't ask the question. What does Krishna want? Okay? It gets complicated. To give a blank answer to that question is not wise. You say, you get the idea. Yes, I thought that question was yours, but didn't recognize the handwriting.
Hare Krishna, Gurudev. If I didn't understood just now, you mentioned if one should not too much detachment.
Too much attached and too much detached.
Detachment, yes. Shall I understand too much detachment? It's similar like someone perform much austerity.
No.
No.
Too much means impersonalism.
Yeah.
That's too much. That's the standard of too much. And as far as austerities is concerned, something that's suitable. Like, let's take, for example, Ekadasi. Ekadasi is an auspicious day, and there are different levels of austerity to perform on Ekadasi day. And one should perform that level of austerity on Ekadasi day that's suitable for someone. Otherwise, it's either not an austerity or an artificial austerity. But it's good to perform some austerity. We have our minimum, no beans and grains, that's the minimum. And increased hearing and chanting. So some people just observe the fasting, no beans and grains, and don't do the increased hearing and chanting part. So that's sub-minimum. Then there's minimum. And then there's levels of austerity, physical austerity, or levels of increasing hearing and chanting that one can do. For example, mentioned in, I've not read it, but I've heard, it's mentioned in Hari Bhakti Vilas that it's recommended on Ekadasi, you stay up all night long and engage in hearing and chanting. And observe nirjal, means no water, from the night before, then the day of, until the sun rises the next morning. Recommended. Now, for someone, that may be not sustainable. For somebody, it may be easy, or particularly strengthened and possible when doing in association of others. Now, there was one devotee whose name I won't mention, but he was going around with a stick saying, if you don't do this, you're in Maya. This one.
About detachment, would you please explain more detail or give some
Attachment.
example?
Okay, there's detachment.
Too much detachment.
Attachment, or too much detachment.
Detachment.
Too much detachment. Well, too much detachment means two things. Not attached to Krishna. Doing without something, without the purpose of cultivating attachment to Krishna. Let's just say, you're here in Vrindavan and you see some jewelry or a pair of shoes or something that the people in Vrindavan have, and you're thinking, I'd like some of those jewels or jewelry or this other kind of shoes. And no, I'm going to be detached. But your mind is dwelling on that. You follow? It's right in from Bhagavad Gita. One who gives up something, but the mind is dwelling on that something, that's artificial. So that's the wrong kind of detachment. It's not exactly artificial, but it's the wrong kind of detachment. And the right kind of detachment is you become attached to Krishna. And then you ask the question, is this going to enhance my devotion to Krishna by this thing, that thing? And you stay with that question, and then you're in the right spirit of detachment. I'll give a personal example. There was a period of time, quite a long time, I refused to get a computer. Why? I don't want the entanglement. I see these people, they sit at the computers all day long, it's all they do, the computers, and I don't want to spoil my life. I'm not going to get a computer. And then people started, this is way back, they started sending letters by email. So I had a secretary download my mail, print it out. I gave answers, gave it back to them. They typed it, I edited the answers, and then they sent it out. I wasn't going to have a computer. Then came along PowerPoint. And I realized, gee, I'm going to have to get a computer. But it was, in the spirit of detachment to get the computer because it was useful for Krishna's service. If it's useful for Krishna's service, it may be, perfectly okay. You have some jewelry, or you have some whatever it is, for this or that or the other reason. I know some people that when they bought their house, they didn't have any furniture in their house. And when the guests came to their house, they thought, these people are weird. There's no place to sit down, I'm staying away from these people, they're weird. So they got some furniture in their house. Not because I want some furniture. I got a house, I got to get some furniture. It was for Krishna's service. That's the spirit of not too much detachment. Just if it's useful for Krishna's service, fine. Just don't get 10 of them. How many pairs of shoes does somebody need? Anyway, Hare Krishna. You get the idea. Yes. You want the microphone?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, you were mentioning about...
Can you speak it instead of read it? Yeah.
You spoke about Jiva Goswami.
Jiva Goswami.
That we need to follow Jiva Goswami, and he does it in 3 steps, the declaration and the sources from Srimad Bhagavatam and other explanation, and the 3rd part. So I didn't get, how do we follow him, and also...
How do you follow Jiva Goswami?
Yeah, and this...
That's what you want to know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Based upon, what's the preamble? Did you catch it? No. How do you follow Jiva Goswami? Well, how do you follow anyone, for that matter? Shrinvanti, Gayanti, Grinanti. That's how. Here, with the purpose of being able to be so clear of what that message is, the gift that's being given by sound vibration or written message, that then I can articulate that message. And I don't just want to show my skill of articulation, I want to live by that. That's how you follow. It's how you follow teachings from a teacher. Be really clear what the teachings are. With fidelity to the teacher, you verbally represent the teaching. It's a little bit like Govinda's question about Guru Sadhu Shastra. I want to represent transparently what that message is, and most importantly, not just say it, but live it. Be a walking example of the teaching. But first I have to hear it, have a clear conception so I can express it properly, and gradually bring it in my heart. That's how. And to do all of that, you have to have regard for the teacher. But you hear the teachings of the teacher. My appreciation for Jiva Goswami it's like a balloon, but it just keeps expanding, and I don't see it popping, I just see it keep expanding and expanding. And so whenever I hear anything, it goes inside real easy. And then I also have to do some refining to make sure I got the message properly, because most likely I got only a small percentage of the message, because my brain is like a pea, it's very tiny, and I can't understand his everything. But so keep hearing like that from right sources. Oh, it's 1 o'clock. We have to end. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Mahaprasad.